So construction documents, then we're moving to construction administration. Anything you'd like to mention about that phase with this particular project?
Get a good contractor.
Yeah? How did you decide on your contractor for this project?
We interviewed, and actually the contractor that built this space was not our first pick. It was our broker's first pick. But I have to say, I'm really glad he introduced us to this team, because they were extreme, what I would consider gentleman contractors. You know, they respect the paperwork cycle. They respect, you know, putting everything in RFIs, and, you know, the process is what I'm, you know.
RFI
is a request for information, and there's always going to be more information that someone needs. I can't stand contractors that don't like paperwork, because paperwork is just part of it, you know. And if we're responsible for delivering a project at X amount of dollars, then we want to make sure that there's processes involved that keep that in check. And I think the contractor is just as much responsible for making that happen as the architect. This contractor was a huge problem solver too, which I think is great. It's not one of those contractors that calls you and says, well, we've got a problem, you know, and then you have to go down to the site and sketch, you know, on a piece of drywall what you think the remedy is going to be. What I generally prefer in the people that we work with is that if there is a problem, I want to know what their solution is before they expect us to come up with something. Because 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the starting point. And usually they already know how to solve their own problem. They just have to have us approve it. But I think that's a big part of having a very effective design team, you know, is having a contractor that is a good problem solver and knows, you know, how to get things done at the end of the day.
So can you think of one particular problem that they had to solve that was like, oh my goodness?
Gosh, there's so many. Well, a really good example is we had detailed our linear diffusers in the wood soffits in the reception area so that they blew outward from the back face of the soffit, because we wanted to hide the face of the linear grill. Well, what we didn't figure out is that there's a lot of stuff that happens from the face of the grill to where that piece of ductwork connects back to the trunk. So when they went to construct that detail, they figured out it was just too constraining. You know, you've got all these supports for a gypsum board ceiling, and then all of a sudden you've got, you know, a piece of ductwork that's trying to go through a space where it's just not going to fit. So eventually we figured out there's a reason that you do linear diffusers straight down like this and not straight out. And that's because you have to have a clear space straight up to the deck. So they did try to build it as per our specification, and they knew what we wanted. They knew we didn't want to see the face of the linear diffuser. So they worked with us to figure out what the best place was, you know, in the field, and we had them field painted so they kind of go away. And you know, I can honestly say it's as clean as it's going to be for a mechanical diffuser, but it's not as clean as what we originally started with. But what we originally started, you know, part of construction is experimentation too, and getting people to do things differently. And sometimes what you figure out is that there are real reasons for why people do the things that they do. But I think it's good to kind of push back on that every once in a while and kind of test it and see if, you know, you never know what you're going to discover. There may be a totally different way to do things.
Well, and there's different technologies that are coming out so often now that you just can't even expect that it might not be able to be smaller or narrower or thinner, and that if you go with the typical, you're never taking advantage of, for instance, some of those new products that might be out there.
Well, I hate mechanical. I mean, mechanical is a necessary evil, but it's, from a design perspective, it's like just the worst. And I can't undervalue the importance of coordination between our architecture sets and mechanical sets. You know, you cannot ignore what an engineer does, because they will screw your project up so fast, and everything they mess up on, it's like 4 digits. I mean, there's no cheap mechanical fix. You know, if they mess up on something, it's going to cost your client a lot of money at the end of the day. So I think it's essential that the interior designer take time to coordinate those drawings the way that they need to be coordinated, because otherwise you're going to end up with thermostats in all the wrong places. You're going to end up with mechanical diffusers that are not as pretty as this, that are, you know, like 2x2 sitting in the middle of a gypboard ceiling. There's just all sorts of things about mechanical that will rain on your parade, you know, every day of the week. One other thing that our contractor was able to figure out for us on the mechanical front was all of these wood ceilings are actually, they have reveals. So the air that's required to go up into the plenum as part of that return and supply exchange is actually hidden in the tile. So even though our mechanical engineer already had 2x2 returns built into the ceiling, our contractor figured out that we don't necessarily need a big ugly black grill, that we can actually use this, and you're still getting that same CFM exchange that you would with a basic grill. So I mean, because of that input, we've got a cleaner ceiling. So I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
And that's creative. That's a creative solution.
It's extremely creative, and that's a special contractor, because that's somebody that's not just doing what's in the documents. Right. They're actually thinking about how it could be better at the end of the day.
And they're vesting in it.
And I would recommend Provident Construction every day of the week. At least for the team I had for this job. They were fantastic. Fantastic.
So you did some move management coming in then? At this point, did you? For
their furniture?
Yeah.
No, we actually had consultants for that.
Okay.
I did do all the new furniture specification, but we weren't responsible for the move management aspect. I think the closest to that we became was there's the file consultant. There's consultants for everything, and in law firms there is most definitely a file consultant. We worked pretty closely with her to make sure that all of the linear inches that they needed were available in the space. You know, so she would send us some sketches, and we would make sure that it's all going to lay out, and you know, the aisle widths were still up to code and all that good stuff. But I would say that's as close to I got in terms of move management. But not that I actually kind of like that stuff.
Do you?
I mean, it's just another exercise in organization, and you know, I kind of like trying to figure out where all the old furniture is going to go. I mean, I did some of that, you know, move weekend, mainly because I'm a control freak and I don't want things to end up where I don't want to see them. But you know, I think, you know, people that do move management, God bless them. You know, I mean, that's just a whole nother field of design that I think, you know, it's ripe for the picking for the right person.
And there aren't many people doing it.
No, there's not. I mean, even the filing. I mean, the lady that does that, you've got to be the most organized person in the world, you know, to move a law firm of this size, you know, to a new space. Because if they don't have their files, they can't function. You know, and to do that in a timely basis where they always have access to everything, regardless of electronic medium and all that. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's not simply just a box in
Exactly.
a corner.
Yep.
Anything else? You know, obviously you're still. They've just moved in a couple of weeks ago, so they're
2 weeks ago.
Preliminary evaluation of.
We generally don't do any preliminaries until 6 months.
Okay.
We ask questions about things, but nothing formal. Post-occupancy surveys are something R&L is definitely trying to do more of, because I think you learn so much from it. But honestly, it's like my Dorsey and Whitney client. I think you learn just as much, you know, just having lunch with your client and walking through every 6 months to see what's successful and what's not successful, as you would with a formalized postdoc. I mean, and I think a lot of times too with postdocs, you have to be ready to hear what they have to say. You know, I kind of like criticism. I'm a little different like that. I don't, you know, don't get me wrong, I don't want people to make me cry or anything, but I do like to hear what isn't working so that we can remember not to do it the next time.
It's a learning process. It's part of the whole
every
learning
project
process.
is. Every project. I mean, there's no, you never stop learning in this field. I don't think it's possible. But
hopefully it'll keep us young.
it's working for you.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything else that you'd like to mention about this project as a client, as a process, as a end result? Anything that you think students of design should know?
I think this is a really perfect example of a true client-designer partnership. I mean, it wasn't like butterflies and roses right from the very beginning. It was very much like, we want this and you're going to give it to us. And there's this, dance that happens somewhere in the middle. And, at the end of the day, to have these people that absolutely respect you for your level of professionalism and giving them something that makes them look good and works for them, it's invaluable. I mean, it's totally invaluable. I can't think of any better profession, to be perfectly honest. I mean, everyone always asks me, there are interior designers out there that get burned out over time, and it's like, I just think you're not working with the right client. You just have to find the right group of people that are going to find value in what you do. That's what it's all about.
And really realize that it is a dance.
It is.
And there is a give and take.
Yeah.
And it's not always just you do what I say.
Yeah, and sometimes it's going to be a salsa and sometimes it's going to be a waltz. You just never know.
You just never know.
Yeah, and they're going to throw you for a dip every once in a while, but that's just the way it works.
That's the unexpected fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks, Mark, so much.
Yeah, sure.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.